Paws Up preview, FIU baseball versus Wofford, and we'll also sprinkle in a little bit of FIU football as the spring showcase is just hours away. I'm Kevin Burrell, your host, joined by Jake Gibson. No Jonathan Merritt today, couldn't make it on, but still, he will be there at all 3 games against Wofford. Jake, should be a lot of fun. It's a very good Wofford team, but we have a cool announcement to make, something that's been in the works for, I want to say, almost a year.
Yeah, it's felt that way for a while now. It's something that we kept dropping teaser after teaser for on our socials, but now we can finally reveal what brand new group we are now a part of, and I have a trailer sent to us to show it off. So here it is.
In this new era of college football, where old-fashioned media just won't cut it, I'm proud to present a new voice for college football fans, the College Huddle, your #1 source for fan-driven college podcasts.
There you go. It's the College Huddle. It is a community of college-based podcasts from all around the country, and we were selected and chosen to be the official representatives of FIU. What this means is that we now have a window to collaborate with other colleges across the nation come this football season, including podcasts for Indiana, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and Kennesaw State, among others. So just a great way to expand the brand outside of just South Florida and to, like I said, join a really prestigious group.
Yeah.
I should mention that the first collaboration you might see with us in the College Huddle might actually be with a University of Florida podcast called the Gator Truth podcast. We did a one-on-one interview. He's asking everybody in the College Huddle why we huddle, and that's all I can really say about it. It's going to be a fun one-on-one with myself and their pods, so definitely check that out when it drops sometime next week.
For sure. All righty. Let's talk a little bit about FIU baseball, Jake. They're currently 18-15 on the season, 7-5 in the conference. But thankfully for FIU baseball, they have a chance to test their depth this week against the Wofford Terriers in the South Carolina team, based in South Carolina. But let's quickly recap what happened this week in the midweek. It was a very weird midweek type situation. So we had a
very strange
half-game doubleheader. So the half game began last week, Tuesday. We're recording this on Thursday. So almost 12 days ago, or 9 days ago, actually, in Fort Myers, the game went all the way up to the top of the third, where a light pole blew out and they had to postpone the game. They decided to play it here at FIU Baseball Stadium, where FIU in that game 1 was, in fact, the away team. And fair to say that the boys came in clutch. There was an RBI double by Matt Corpus that drove in Jeff LaCory, and then with the bases loaded, none other than Ryan Guida cleared the bases with an RBI double himself. That made it a 7-6 game where no other team would score after that, but Ryan Kabarkis would record his 200th strikeout in that game. Then we move on to game number 2 on the night. It was a 7-inning game, just 45 minutes after the first one, and FIU had Cam Knox on the mound, goes 3 shutout innings, no hits, no runs, no three strikeouts, I want to say, and no walks. And then same goes to their Fort Myers starter. FIU at the end of the day got it going. Home runs by Ryan Guida, home runs by Alex Uyola. They then take a 2-1 lead. I believe after that, they got another lead out there, 4-2 lead. Fort Myers is able to tie it in the bottom of the 7th. In the top of the 7th, FIU walks it off in the bottom of the 7th with a walk-off winner, baby. Nick Vitelli gets it in there. Jake, really, that was as much as I could recap. I think I couldn't get much better than that.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Take us through your thoughts. You watched most of both games, I want to say. And, just this team now in the latter end of the season really looking like the FIU team we expected. 2 great pitching performances, too. David Eckes combined with last week, too. He ended up going 4, but this time around he shut him out instead of his 3 runs that he gave up on that Tuesday.
So who would have guessed that a broken light pole would have turned out to be the best thing that could have happened for FIU in Fort Myers?
Yeah.
Because a lot happened for the Panthers in between that and this game. They had a tough series where they dropped a road contest against Jacksonville State. They made a lot of mental errors in those first couple of games, but rebounded in the Sunday finale against the Gamecocks in an offensive just onslaught, 13-10 win for FIU over the Gamecocks. And they sort of took that momentum they had from
Eagles,
that final
man.
game.
The Eagles. Oh, you're talking about Jack State. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jacksonville State. That was only a few days before the Wednesday doubleheader. And
I was not paying attention. Go ahead. Sorry.
it's okay. But yeah, the final game against the Gamecocks, they won 13-10. It felt like they took some of that offensive momentum they'd had from that game and poured it into this continuation of the Florida Gulf Coast game because from what we saw before that game was ultimately delayed was that FIU looked good on offense. They got 2 runs in the first, an additional 1 in the third, but then they couldn't match what Florida Gulf Coast was doing. And the script flipped. Granted, there was a freaking triple play as soon as the first of the doubleheader started. I couldn't believe my eyes. I can't remember the last time I had seen a triple play in college baseball, but it happened against the Panthers. After that, though, it was all the FIU show, and the usual suspects did their part. You have players like Patelli, who again has been a solid sort of reintroduced, if you will, to this lineup. Of course, you have Ryan Guida doing solid at bat as well. These are the players that you kind of expect to have great games, and then they decided to throw Patelli in there and see how he would click with this batting order. And he actually has looked pretty good towards the latter end of these games, not to mention, obviously, the walk-off in game 2. But, yeah, players like Austin Deering, Jeff LeCory, and of course, the big man Ryan Guida, they all had phenomenal games this past series. And maybe it took a little bit of extra time to get them ready to take on FGCU, but as it would turn out, the best thing that could have happened to them was that light pole breaking. I don't even think they have it fixed yet, Kevin.
I don't think they have it fixed, but Coach Wynn really alluded to it. Like, it's not that Ryan Guida was on a slump by any means, but it just didn't look like the Ryan Guida we knew. Not that guy who's going to go gap to gap and every once in a while really take one deep. Just wasn't doing it. It was a lot of he was really hitting it, really just high in the air, trying to hope for something. And maybe he would tell you the same thing. Maybe he wouldn't. We're very close with Ryan. He's a great person.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting. A lot of his on-base percentage has been through hit by pitches. I don't know if you've noticed this, but
it's a really strange
Buddy has been hit by pitches a lot this year. He currently has a 444 on-base percentage. He is second in Conference USA and hit by pitches. I think he's at like 12 or 13. And he got hit by, I think, 1 or 2 yesterday. So definitely interesting there. But aside from that, you kind of mentioned it, big game for Ryan Guida. Nick Patelli, if you remember in that first game, he actually hit a home run in Fort Myers. So definitely that was his first collegiate home run too. So big day for him. And then you had the walk-off in game 2. Aside from that, Alex Uyola, once again, looking really good offensively. If there's one thing that I've loved about Alex Uyola, it's been the bat. I mean, a little bit too aggressive in my opinion at times, but really aside from that, really liking just the overall at-bats, the end result of a lot of his at-bats, and then the speeds definitely help. But we'll talk about the negatives a little later because Wofford definitely stands out in terms of what FIU may struggle with here. But Jake, anything else you want to touch on when it comes to this FGCU series? And you could even mention a little bit of that Jack State one too.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to say about the Jack State game except FIU, I don't want to say was humbled in the first couple of games, but they definitely got their stuff rocked in that opener, losing 18-7, their worst loss of the season since they lost to FAU by an absolutely crazy score. Like I want to say like about a month ago up to this point. But you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And Jacksonville State, obviously, they were the home team, and they proved that their offense was more than enough to match what FIU was capable of doing. And they have a really great rotation when it comes to their bullpen as well. So it kind of got FIU off guard a little bit. Granted, their record against conference opponents is still very good. They have a 7-5 record overall, and have have not, aside from that game, have not dropped a series against a CUSA opponent yet, and we hope that continues when they take on New Mexico State and Dallas Baptist towards the latter end of April. One thing I did want to highlight about the first game against FGCU was how good both Zach Lampton and Ryan Kabarkas looked towards the latter end of those games, pretty much denying absolutely anything from Florida Gulf Coast offense. Lampton went 3 innings, only gave up 2 hits, no runs whatsoever. And then Ryan Kabarkas was just about perfect, only 1 walk, but no hits as well in 2 innings of work. So overall, really great pitching effort by FIU in that first game. And it was also pretty solid in the second game as well. Overall, it was just a great team effort. That there have been some instances where FIU has lost some close games as of late, like down to the wire games. That was not the case. They actually did a great job closing out and ultimately denying a late comeback for the opposing team. And obviously that Nick Patelli the walk-off hit was, chef's kiss. It was
and they're going to need it too.
So rewarding.
Injuries have definitely piled up a little bit on this FIU team. Chase Engelhardt's been out for a very long time. Not sure why. Ronnie Medina been out for a pretty long time. Not sure why. So it's a lot of injuries piling up on this FIU team, man. You're seeing guys step up. You mentioned it today, Nick Patelli. I mean, look at what he did, in this past series. You have Andre Martinez, who wasn't playing too much, ended up playing a lot more, even led off some games. He's looked really good. I knew he was a guy entering who I was pretty high on, and a lot of people were telling me really good stuff about Sammy Fisher. He's a freshman, but he's looked really good defensively. He's got to get it going with the bat a little bit. I think he has a really good chance to really break through with this FIU team and show off, the power that we saw during that World Series, and especially during the spring and summer / fall workouts. I mean, he looked really good. So there's a lot to like with these guys that are stepping up, and you're seeing it too with the pitching. I mean, Zach Lampton has looked really damn good. Aside from a blow-up start against FAU, he's looked really damn good at coming out of the bullpen. And I would like to see him come out during CUSA games. They have a really good series this week. Perfectly lines up so they could get guys in there, guys like a Evan Alwine, like a Tristan Dietrich, who I think those guys are the future of this FIU pitching rotation. Owen Puck, who struggled a lot this season, but again, a lot of it's been due to Tommy John coming back from that injury, really getting used to new velocities. We'll talk about this a lot more into depth later, but there's a lot of reason to like this team, especially going into this weekend against Wofford, and that sets them up really well for what's next.
Yeah, no, you absolutely hit it there. Funny enough. Wofford is such an interesting opponent because it's one of those instances where you're going up against conference opponent after conference opponent, and now you're getting smacked with a opponent from a conference you're really not too familiar with taking on, being the SoCon. We'll talk a bit more about Wofford's schedule and what we can really expect from them. However, I just got to say, it's getting crazy in Conference USA right now, standings wise. I mean, it was Dallas Baptist and Louisiana Tech sort of teetering between first place in the conference. Now Liberty has snuck up, and despite having a 15-17 overall record, they're 7-2 in the conference, which is somehow better than Dallas Baptist, Louisiana Tech, and Western Kentucky. FIU is like dead smack in the middle, which I think is a pretty good place to be, all things considered, for these Panthers to be in the middle of the pack. And then unfortunately, that Jacksonville State series is really proving to be costly for the Panthers because Jacksonville State's only 2 wins against Conference USA opponents have been against the Panthers, which is really frustrating to see. Who looks to be the worst team in Conference USA at the moment have the success they did hosting FIU. But I digress. I think FIU is in a pretty good spot at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, they're almost in there. In that CUSA tournament. I'm not sure what clinching scenarios may look like right now because there's still a lot of baseball left to be played. And for FIU specifically, you've got a lot to play for here because this is a really good team, Jake. This has to be one of the best. This is by far the best team since FIU joined the Conference USA. I mean, just record-wise speaking, it's the best start they've ever gotten to in Conference USA. There's so much to like with this team, and I was talking, I think, to Gabe on our staff of Lemon City, and I was telling him, do you need is an auto bid 35 wins? And it's no longer the case. So FIU really needs to get those gears going and enter this Conference USA tournament fully healthy and you got to put your best guys out there. You got to start with your best pitcher, which honestly has been between Joel Pinheiro and Cam Knox. You got to go with those guys. And again, I mean, we're talking weeks down the line, but you look at it now, and this is right now when you really need to get it going.
Yeah. And it's not going to get easy. It's not going to get any easier for this FIU team, man. It won't be long until they're having to host arguably the best team in the conference, maybe second best team as it stands right now, the Dallas Baptist Patriots, man. And then not long after, they'll have to go on the road to take on that Liberty team. So between Dallas Baptist and Liberty, if FIU really wants to make a wave and secure themselves a great spot in the Conference USA tournament, it's going to have to be against literally the two best teams in Conference USA right now. In between those, they have matchups against New Mexico State, which, I mean, granted, they're one of the bottom teams of Conference USA, but that really doesn't mean much. I mean, it's baseball. And any given day, a team like such as Jacksonville State can do good against a team like FIU, which I think objectively has been a much better team overall this season, but they still took 2 or 3 against them. So
exactly. I mean, you can never say you have a clear winning Conference USA. And again, for FIU, I mean, no matter what, this is something Johnny would tell you more than I can, or give you more information in terms of RPI when it comes to these type of games. I mean, you still have, and maybe it's not the biggest factor at the end of the day, but it moves FIU into a position where they could qualify themselves into maybe some sort of regional. And maybe this team is meant for that. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm absolutely wrong, Jake. Because you know me. I mean, I'm very high on these guys, but they took that 2 out of 3 against Notre Dame. Now you have Wofford. I don't know how much that will do for the RPI, but this is, again, a team that's 22-9. They're a very, very good team. You still have Dallas Baptist, who is the number 15th ranked Dallas Baptist, the only ranked opponent FIU will take on this year. You still have Liberty. You still have Miami for 2 games. You still have Sam Houston. Yes. You have a lot of baseball to be played. You still have Iowa still. By far, probably the best team they'll play.
Iowa has lost their ranking, though, haven't they?
They have, and it's very interesting. They are right now. Let's check their record. I think they are still a very good team, no matter what the record is. If I'm looking at this right, yeah, they're 17-13 right now on the season. I'm wrong. Yeah, no, 17-13. Yep, on the year. That's not. I mean, almost the same record as FIU, and they're 5-4 in their conference, which looks like it's definitely been what's hurting them. And they lost their ranking since February.
I see. Okay. Well, in case you can't tell, this was recorded right after our episode with Kalia Henderson, which was awesome. So
yeah, it was great.
A big gas, but it's all good. I mean, this is going to be an interesting series for Wofford, or for FIU against Wofford. Again, it's a team they don't play that often, but it's a team that can provide a bit more insight as to what FIU could experience. And again, fingers crossed, because there's still a lot of baseball left to play, but these are the kind of opponents that you could randomly match up against in the regionals if FIU were to make it that far past the Conference USA tournament. And, Wofford is such an interesting team for this kind of matchup. They're 22-9, which makes you go, damn, they're a really good ball club. They must have taken on some top-notch opponents. And it's like, I don't know. They've looked good against teams like Farley Dickinson, teams against Fordham.
But it's like teams I've never heard of, and then you go a little lower. You look at Georgia. You lost 18-6.
Yeah,
and that's really the only team I kind of recognize here right now, man. I mean, Mercer we remember from the NCAA tournament for men's soccer, but aside from that, it's a lot of their opponents. And I'm not sure where Wofford is in terms of division ranking, in terms of a school with their football teams, but they may be D2 or D3.
They're part of the Southern Conference, aka the SoCon. I mean, once again, it's just not a conference that I'd say FIU is super familiar with at the moment. However, they're second place in the conference overall, right? They're 6-3 against conference opponents. They're only behind that Samford team that we mentioned earlier. It's a tough opponent to really dive into and dissect how FIU matchups well against them. There is one factor that could be the breaking point, however, which I think you alluded to earlier. So I'll let you take it away here. What makes this Wofford team a nightmare matchup for FIU in what sense?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but first of all, I want you to go into I don't know if this is on NCAA baseball, but look up where Wofford ranks in batting average and total offense and OPS because
Like just in all of college baseball?
all college baseball nationally ranked because I know they're way up there, and I think Johnny was telling us, and actually, I'll look it up on the FIU baseball site, but um, they are one of the best offensive teams in all of baseball. I mean, in all of college baseball, it's not even close. And that's what's going to hurt FIU. FIU's pitching is really good. I think they're a good pitching team, and they're going with Logan Rundy game 1, Joel Pinheiro game 2. And if I had to say who the TBD would be, I would have to think between Owen Puck and Cam Knox for game 3. But again, this is a really, really good Wofford team that's going up against the pitching staff that has had its highs and lows. So it's interesting.
Their batting average is .354 overall. That is the best right now in college baseball. I mean, you looking at the top 10, you have teams like
share your screen, please, for that.
Okay, yeah. Let me.
I believe you're showing multiple stats on there, and I do want to know how many stolen bases they have this year.
Okay, here. Let me.
As Jake does that, Wofford's going with Zach Cowan for game 1. He has a 5-1 record, 3.38 ERA. Then you have Camden Wicker for game 2, 2-0 record with a 2.08 ERA. FIU going with Logan Rundy game 1, 4.50 ERA. Joel Pinheiro game 2, 4.34 ERA. TBD for the other 2 games. So we'll just have to wait and see. But there we go. Wofford is by far the best offensive team in Conference USA. Jake, I don't know if you could look up OPS on there. That should be there. It should be.
Here we go. OBS, on base percentage. Is that what we're looking for?
Yep,
look at that. Wofford's up there as well.
Yep.
.469.
And then go back there and look up. Scroll down to where you were. It should come up. Oh, it's not there. Slugging. No. Weird. It's not there. It should be OPS, but that's fine. Just look up stolen bases. That's the last one we'll do before.
Stolen bases. Okay, here we go. And Wofford's tied for second with Oakland.
There you go. So that's kind of what I wanted to allude to there, Jake. Wofford is second in the nation in stolen bases, and FIU unfortunately has struggled in limiting base runners. And I think I was mentioning this. I love Brendan Roney as a catcher. I think he's a great catcher, but overall as a team, you have Alex Viola with, I believe, I don't even want to know how many errors, but he leads the team in that stat. I think it is 16 errors, I want to say, on the season. We'll look it up right now. He has 16 errors this season. Yep. Leads the team. So definitely tough on that end, but a lot to like with FIU. A lot of defensive mistakes have really hurt them in past games, Jake. I think we could really both say that, but again, that's how I kind of see this going Wofford's way, and honestly, all 3 games. But we'll see. Brendan Rooney's a great game manager. He's a great catcher. I hope he'll step it up, and I think he's actually one of the best defensive catchers in Conference USA. I'll let you talk a little bit about how Wofford can hurt the Panthers this weekend while I look this up.
Well, offensively, Wofford's got some really great playmakers here and there. But however, don't kid yourself short. FIU can absolutely match them as far as the run department, as far as getting up on games early. FIU can absolutely specialize themselves in doing that. They have, when you have a lineup that consists of, like, say, Deering and then Ryan back to back, that has proven to be an absolutely amazing duo early on in the batting order, and has produced lots of runs in the first, second, and third innings. If FIU can get into a lead first and then sort of hold on to that momentum, I mean, it's going to be very good for the Panthers in the long run in this series. It depends on how FIU's rotation their batting order can sort of contain some of the heavy hitters that this Wofford Terrier team has. It's difficult, but I feel like if there was a Conference USA comparison for Wofford, I'd say it would have been Louisiana Tech. However, Louisiana Tech has kind of gone in somewhat of a downward spiral as of late. Middle Tennessee sort of provided a very similar challenge for FIU. Even though they did win the series, Middle Tennessee still got more than enough runs per game, which could normally win a baseball game. They dropped 12 runs in the first game, 6 runs in both game 2 and 3. That's a lot of runs to be giving up in a game. What helped FIU was that their offense was so dominant during that part that they dropped double-digit runs in both those games anyway, negating a really good offensive performance for the Blue Raiders. I could see something like that happening again for this FIU team, and they have some great players. I mean, they have this one player. All right, Bryce Martinez. He is like he leads the team in overall batting average. Granted, there are 4 players for Wofford at the moment that have an above 400 batting average, and they're all like they could all definitely do some damage. But I think one player we should probably look at more than others could be Bryce Martinez. He's there. He kind of rotates between infield and outfield. I believe he's a grad student as well. 37 runs batted in, 51 hits, and 121 at-bats, 3 home runs. He is a double machine. He has 9 doubles this season, which is like really good, and 31 RBIs. He's overall a very solid hitter and an absolute mix of great hitters here. Marshall Toole, Ethan Belk, and Carter Hansen are all really common players to see in Wofford's lineup and expect them to be used against FIU. And again, it's just going to be up to the starters to sort of limit what Wofford can do early on, and then we'll see if FIU's bullpen can actually keep the success rate going if the starters do their job and help get FIU into early leads.
All righty. I think we're good enough on the Wofford side of things and FIU. Let's talk a little bit about the Spring Showcase, but before that, let's talk quickly prediction time. Who wins and who's your MVP of the series?
Okay, of the series.
How many games though?
Yeah. I'll say, thinking positive here, I'm not Johnny, okay? But I will say that I think FIU is going to get the jump on Wofford, especially because, they have the home field advantage, which I think will play a big part here. Not to mention they're coming off of –
It'll play a big part on Friday.
It'll be, a big part on Friday. And then,
unfortunately, I think we'll talk about where everyone's going to be on Saturday.
Hopefully, it doesn't clash as much as we fear it will. But still, FIU is coming off even better momentum as of recently when compared to Wofford. As of late, Wofford has played good, but I think FIU overall as of late has played even better. I'm going to say FIU wins the series. I'm not going to say they're going to get the sweep. I can see them winning the Friday and Saturday games and then giving up the Sunday finale, but I still think FIU will walk out of here with a series win.
I'm going to go agree with you. FIU will take 2 out of 3, and I'm going to go with my MVP, and I know you didn't choose one, so I'll give you some more time to choose. I'll give you some more time because now I'm going to say mine. I'm going to go with Jeff LaCory as my MVP. I've really liked what Jeff has done. He told me he wants to be on the podcast again, so we got to get him on. We'll get him on right before the conference tournament, so we could preview, whatever matchup that'll be. It'll probably be the 4 against the 5 or something. I don't know how that works there, Jake. You'll have to let me know. But who's your MVP? He's been hitting the wall well. I love what Jeff LaCory's been doing. Who's your MVP for this series?
In the same sense that LaCory has been doing all that, Aloha has found very similar success. So I think it might be somewhat of a common pick, but I would go definitely with Aloha to continue the heater that he's been on as of late. You can even make the case that players like Daring and Ryan will continue to have the success they have. But Aloha, I'm really excited to see how he performs in this series.
All righty. Let's talk some Spring Showcase, Jake. FIU wrapped up their final spring practice of the year today, Thursday, when we're filming.
Right.
But all that work comes down to Saturday at 5 p.m. at FIU football stadium. So, talk to me a little bit. What to expect? What are you thinking? What are you hoping to see? What I have understood, they're actually going to scrimmage a decent amount, so we're going to get some good looks.
Yeah, that makes me excited. They keep on kind of tweaking how they want to perform these spring showcase events. They keep changing the list of what they're going to do every part of the event. It's going to be a pretty decently long event as well. They're going to get by pretty much every position down to a T. They're going to at least try to do that. I think it was last year's spring showcase. It kind of got rained out. I believe the weather this weekend is actually going to be much better though, so we can actually see like much drier, I should say. So that's going to be the most exciting. I'm obviously interested in seeing the quarterback battle and how that has sort of evolved since then. I feel like we're all relatively certain that it's going to be lights out. Keywan Jenkins reprising his role as the starting quarterback. However, I mean, with all the other quarterbacks that have been taking reps, you have Hayden Carlson, Shaden Peary, Amari Jones, and Clayton Dees. I mean, that's I think that's a solid lineup of potential rivals to Jenkins. If not rivals, then who the second string backup? Who's going to be the backup for Jenkins come the start of the season in case things don't turn out well for Jenkins, either due to performance on the field or to injury? We hope neither of those things happen, but you need to have a reliable backup quarterback in case something like that does happen. So I'm really interested to see who's going to nab that spot come the opener against Indiana.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I mean, I think you'll agree with me. This is Keywan's job to lose right here. I mean,
absolutely.
I unfortunately, no offense to the other guys, I just think Keywan is, well, first of all, I think the guy's lights out, and that's why he has the nickname.
Lights out! Lights out!
What do we think of the use?
It was good. I mean, we had said lights out like 5 straight times before that, though. Just
keep actually.
Well, I know I said lights out once. I said lights out, and it kind of blew my mind that, oh wait, this would have been the perfect time. Oh well. So, but okay, yeah, no, I agree. It's his job to lose, man. He turned heads with how he performed in a lot of the games last season. I obviously always will remember how he did against North Texas and how great he looked then. That was like peak Keywan Jenkins in that season last year.
Sam Houston, man.
Sam Houston was also great too. But I don't know. North Texas was a significantly better opponent than Sam Houston at that point in the season. And I don't know. Granted, what made Jenkins a great quarterback was having a very solid receiver that he could throw to, and that was Chris Mitchell. Now the wide receiver room is sort of up in the air for who can now become the wide receiver one. They have some great players here and there. Of course, you have the return men like Dean Patterson and Eric Rivers, who obviously will not skip a beat because they're familiar with Keywan Jenkins' system, but who is going to step up to the ranks and become true wide receiver run, if they even want to run a system like that.
There's a couple guys I want to mention. There's a lot of guys who've been highlighted. Well, 2 of them. First of all, we need to talk about DJ Washington here, a.k.a. Desna Washington. That guy may be one of the longest players I've ever seen.
Yes.
Dude is massive. And we're talking to FIU offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach David Yost not too long ago, and he was telling us Chris Mitchell would run by guys, but Desna Washington is just going to go up and get it himself. And that's something FIU hasn't had in a very long time, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my voice is about to die.
It's all good, but yeah, no, he can moss people, bro. He can absolutely go up in the air. It doesn't matter how good your coverage is. He has the size advantage, no matter who the defensive back is. So he's going to be a menace when it comes to those deep ball throws going his way. It's going to be a toss up, and I think Washington is going to be the guy who is going to win that toss up more times than not. And so the wide receiver battle is going to be fun. The running back room is probably the biggest storyline of all. I mean,
the depth there is insane.
The depth is insane, and the return of Flex Joseph could be such an amazing story now that he's back to being 100% healthy, having missed all of last season. However, you have that experience that you've built with Shamari Lawrence and Keyshawn Owens now competing with the veteran who missed some time. So, man, does FIU want to roll with some of these players who put in the work last season, or do they want to give Flex another shot to really prove why he's such a special running back for FIU? That's going to be another amazing story, which we might see some stuff about in the spring showcase.
Jake, you would know better than me, and I'll let you look this up, but you're going to have to tell me the last time FIU ran a 3 running back system. And the one interesting factor to keep in mind is throughout the spring, Flex Joseph has not participated in contact drills. He's been hit here and there, but it hasn't been like for example, you will not see him scrimmage on Saturday. He does not scrimmage, but he will be getting contact during fall camps, summer camps. He will 100% be on contact. They will be hitting him, making sure that he is good to go. But again, I'm very excited to see Keyshawn Owens really take that next step forward. Had a nice freshman year, goes in with his sophomore year this past year, really looks good. Now he goes into his junior year. This is the year where we need to see some sort of a breakout. I mean, this is a guy who's very familiar with Kejuan Jenkins. He's very familiar with his offense now going into year 3. I'm very high on Keyshawn Owens and what he could potentially bring to this team. Shamari Lawrence is another guy who I'm very excited to see what he brings to the table. He is someone who is a big, big back. He's going to just run right through the middle. We saw what he did against La Tech. That was one of the first plays of the season.
Yes.
Kind of hoping that he built off of that, really didn't. And a lot of it was due to really that split reps between Owens and Shamari. Now, one of the things I'm going to be interested is in what will be the case when it comes to the red zone packages. That's one thing I'm very interested in. FIU last year got to the red zone many times, Jake, and they would not be able to convert. You now bring in a guy like Desna Washington, who I think is like 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
He's huge. Then you now bring in Flex Joseph, who maybe this may be a stat. You're going to have to look this up.
Yeah.
But the amount of touchdowns that he had in 2020, whatever, in the red zone itself, he's a big back. He's still big. I mean, he put on a lot of weight compared to what he looked like in 2022. So he's a bigger back, really be used in those red zone packages. And then you have a guy like Shamari Lawrence, who's a really built-up guy. So, I mean, they've really set themselves up in a good positioning for the red zone. You have Rocky and Rowdy Beer still. Those guys are out there. Josiah Neiman still big tight end. I mean, there's a lot to like with the potential that this offense could bring to you in the red zone. But if there's one thing I'm saying, Jake, and I'm going to continue to say, is that FIU may be the most wild card team in Conference USA. They could either be a really damn good team that's going to make a bowl game, or they're going to be that 4-8 team that we saw these past 2 years.
It's going to be either or. There's no middle ground. Either FIU is going to do well enough to maybe even compete for a Conference USA title to like be in that mix, or it's going to be another season of solid play, but definitely it could be better. I feel like most of the outside media is not giving FIU that much of an opportunity. I mean, we saw the success that teams like Liberty and New Mexico State and Jacksonville State had. Funny enough,
New Mexico State is the perfect look at what FIU could potentially be. That is a team that, holy crap, were they really bad? I mean, there's another way to say it. And then, Jerry Kill no longer there, but back-to-back seasons where they make a bowl game, and in this case for New Mexico State, they made the Conference USA championship. And again, this Conference USA is not getting much easier, Jake. You bring Kennesaw State to the mix, who had by the program's best recruiting class. And then now in 2025, 2026, you're going to bring in Delaware, who is the FCS powerhouse. They are and they have a lot of money, man. I mean, for an FCS team going into Conference USA, they paid the $5 million buy-in to go FBS. And, again, with Kennesaw and Delaware, it's going to be an interesting case when those teams come in where they can't compete for a bowl game, but they're still really good. And, in the case of what we saw with Jack State and James Madison, we were they kind of got their wishes by making that bowl game. But I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into these new teams coming in, and they could play spoiler. You got to do that too. And again, people have asked me, they've been like, "What do you think of FIU this year?" I'm like, I don't know what to think, man. It's just like it's a total wild card thing because a lot of it relies on what Kejuan brings to you year 2. How does this wide receiver core look? I don't think there's a clear wide receiver one. As much as I want to say it's possibly Eric Rivers or Dean Patterson, I can't name you a clear wide receiver one. The running back room, I mean, maybe was it 2019, Jake, where they didn't have a clear wide receiver one? No, they had a really nice running back room, or what year was it that they didn't have a clear number one target? But so many guys got targeted around, and they had a good running back room where they still made that bowl game. And I think you were at FIU back then.
Yeah, no, I absolutely was, and I believe it was 2019 when they sort of ran that type of system. However,
were you at FIU when they made the bowl games?
I was not there for the Bahamas Bowl. That was right before I became a student. I was there for 2019 when they beat Miami, and then they went to the Camellia Bowl.
So that may have been the year.
Yeah. Do they necessarily need a true wide receiver one to find success throwing the ball? I don't think they necessarily have to. You have strong players that can provide you numbers regardless of who you really want Key1 to be throwing the ball to primarily. I mean, we saw what Dean Pedersen and Eric Rivers can do, specifically that duo right there, had relatively solid numbers despite not receiving the most targets out of any receiver FIU had this season. However, maybe one aspect of FIU's offense they could look into is utilizing the tight end group even more than they have been using. You had players like Jackson McDonald, who was primarily a blocker more than he was an actual receiver. However, you can see players like, of course, Rocky and Rowdy Beers and, of course, Josiah Meeman receive even more playing time this season just because you really want to see what they can do catching-wise, because it's not easy to supplement Chris Mitchell. Chris Mitchell was an absolute talent that you can't find a remedy for in just one offseason. It's near impossible to do something like that, let alone not just FIU, but any college team that loses a player as beneficial to the offense that he was. So you have to make do with what you have. And with what you have players like Josiah Meeman and Rocky and Rowdy Beers who could become even better receivers than they are blockers at the tight end position. You just need to give them the opportunity to go out there and see what they can do. However, no, absolutely. I think if FIU wants to sort of utilize the running game more this offseason, considering, okay, you're bringing back Lexington Joseph, you're bringing back Shamari Lawrence and Keyshawn Owens. They're all going to be reliable backs that will do numbers for you. And oh, by the way, you could have another potentially great runner in Keywan Jenkins. He could also improve his RPO system and how he can sort of find open areas and get the ball rolling on his leg instead of the running back. So running wise, I think FIU is in a really great position right now, even better than what they were at last season. Receiving wise has a lot to be decided, but I do think they have the pieces to sort of fill in the gaps that were left from the departure of Chris Mitchell. It's not going to be easy though.
Yep, for sure. Alrighty, I think we're good to wrap up, Jake. We've gone almost 45 minutes. Crazy enough. FIU Spring Showcase, 5 p.m. Make sure to go check it out.
It's free.
It's free, and from what I have understood, there's going to be interactive moments during the practice where fans can partake. So we'll see what that comes in with.
Not to mention, if I'm not mistaken, in practices past, they give everybody posters, and the players and coaches can sign them after the event concludes. We haven't even covered like the defense yet. That's another topic altogether. You have players like Reggie Peterson, Hezekiah Masses, and Brian Blades. We again want to see what they will do in the spring practices tomorrow. And of course, kickers matter too. And our own Chase Gabriel, I feel like that job is still his for the taking at the kicker position. So shout out Chase Gabriel. So.
Yeah, alrighty. I think we're going to wrap it up here, Jake. A lot we dove into these two sports. FIU baseball against Wofford Friday at 6 p.m.
Right. Yeah, let me check that. As a matter of fact, let me do a quick around FIU athletics look just to make sure we're all dialed in when it comes to what's going on here on campus at Florida International University. So let's start off with baseball. They're taking on the Wofford Terriers. Game 1 is on Friday, April 12th at 6:30 p.m. Game 2 is on Saturday at 3 p.m. and Game 3 is on Sunday at noon. It's worth noting, in case you can't make it to the ballpark, the Friday and Sunday games are going to be on ESPN+. The Saturday game is not. So keep that in mind as you make your way to the ballpark. Baseball has an 18-15 record. They have won 3 straight games. After that, by the way, they're going to host FAU for a random midweek matchup next week on the 16th. So it's going to be worth checking out. Softball is also playing right now this weekend. They have a 16-21 record overall. They're coming off a series win, however, against the UTEP Miners. They're going to be on the road taking on the New Mexico State Aggies starting on Friday at 8 p.m., Saturday at 6 p.m., and Sunday at 1 p.m. Friday and Saturday will be on ESPN+. Sunday will not. They'll be back at home on next weekend when they host the Jacksonville State Gamecocks starting on Friday, April 19th. Let's move on to tennis. Another great FIU team right now. Tennis is putting up having a record-setting season. They have a 15-2 record and have won 14 straight matches. Their most recent matches coming against teams like UTSA, Delaware, Rice, and most recently South Florida. They're getting really close to the Conference USA Championships, which are starting on April 18th to the 21st. Their last regular season game is on a Saturday at noon when they take on FAU. Keep in mind, the tennis team is at the American Athletic Conference, so there you go. Tennessee is having an absolutely incredible season right now. We wish them the best of luck as they're starting to close out their regular season. And beach volleyball is having similar success, man. They have a 16-9 overall record and won their last match against the UAB Blazers in the Florida State Invitational. They are also starting to close out their regular season. They have an invite over at Boca Raton where they're taking on Tulane, South Carolina, Stetson, and, of course, FAU. First matchup against Tulane is on Saturday, April 13th at 9:30 a.m. And then it won't be long until they start their Conference USA tournament run, beginning on Thursday, April 25th to the 27th. So that was your quick look around FIU athletics as we start to close out the show. And we covered a lot today, Kevin. It's been a busy day, and we talked about this in the Kalia episode, but we already have a guest lined up for next week, and it's going to be a fun one, Kevin.
We have 2 guests lined up for 2 weeks in a row, so we are well ahead, ready to go with whatever's coming at us. Once again, Jake Gibson, Kevin Barral will be there both at the Spring Showcase. We'll be there at the FIU baseball game as long as we can. Jake, I think you said you were going to be staying for the whole thing.
Yeah.
It helps if there's a way for you to do that. So, again, make sure to follow Jake's work on the pawsupPage.com. My work as well is on there. And for me, shouting it out, G5 Football Daily on Sports Illustrated. Make sure to go check that out. Mike, Jake Gibson, and as always, paws up, baby.
Paws up!